All right, what's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video, another quick take. I got my guys, Drew and Percy. What's up, fellas?
How's it going?
You know, the Prince of Fresh Air is back, and unlike Boosie, I'm not going to charge you for this.
Glad to have you guys back. So, I felt that this was a necessary quick take to do because recently I just dropped a review of the Michael Jackson movie a few days ago. And it sparked a lot of controversy in my comment section because I had made comments about the actor who played the younger Michael Jackson. And basically, essentially all I said was that I was not convinced that he was a young Michael Jackson because Juliano Krue Valdi is not a black boy. To me, he's not. I do not consider him to be black. And I could not buy into the illusion of that. And I got a lot of comments, which most of which I blocked, but most of them were saying, oh, he's black, he's black, he's black, he's black. And I'm like, he's not, because he doesn't look like me. He doesn't look like Percy. He doesn't look like Drew. He looks like Bruno Mars. And before I read this comment, which is the focal point of this quick take, do either of you consider Bruno Mars to be a black man?
I don't know enough about the guy. Where's he from?
I have no idea where this man is from. One of y'all can look it up. But just at you know, Bruno Mars, do you consider him to be black, a black man?
I don't. He's from Hawaii. I consider Bruno Mars a person of color, but I don't consider him black.
Drew?
Hard for me to say. I might say that he is just because of my own background. You know, and I've just seen a lot of different variations of people come out.
Okay, so with that said, I'm going to read this comment by this person who says, I agree that Juliano isn't black, but it's more that he's not perceived as black wherever he goes. Latino is not a race, and race isn't biological. It's genetical, which genetical is not a word. It's genetic and developmental, but humans are not divided into separate species on the basis of race. It's a construct specifically designed to subjugate Africans and promote white supremacy. So perception and systemic application matters a lot. So, yeah, I don't think it's really necessary to read the end of it, I guess, because I already responded to the latter portion of that comment. But again, I wanted to address that topic with a broad discussion of whether or not race is a social construct or is it a term that denotes biology and genetics. And so Drew, I want to get your thoughts on that. So to you, to better, is race a social construct to you, or is it a term that denotes genetics? And then we'll build from there.
You know, being the senior person on here, I'll say this. You know, I think that the world has tried to divide by color and say it's like a race, like they compare it to birds. You know, you guys have heard that, right? Like robins hang together, bluebirds hang together, and they can procreate, and they can't procreate with each other, and that sort of thing. That's different. Humans can procreate with each other, no matter what your skin tan is. It really gets down to back in the day, they saw darker skin and they started doing this classism thing, you know, curlier hair, darker eyes, darker skin, slanted eyes, bigger eyes, you know, lighter skin, bluer eyes, greener eyes. They started doing that. And it's really based upon where you're from, where your parents or grandparents are from. You know, you could have one parent from Africa, you could have one parent from Holland, you know, so you're going to be kind of an in-between of them or a relative that's in the DNA pool. And that's something that just happens, you know, just because your parents, and that's the other thing, your parents could be one way, but there could be a relative, a grandparent, a great-grand, somebody that had green eyes, and now you got green eyes. The genetic pool can make many different things. We as a society, as a whole, I want to say the world, not just as a society, we've started putting separation on people and saying that people should just stick to the colors that they should, that they are. And that's never been correct. You know, for some reason, we've allowed that past of separation and the power struggle allow us to today, 2026, continue to be that way. And, you know, honestly, in 2026, I think we're more divided than we've ever been in a lot of times, because I just see so many videos about race and, oh, you don't like black people, don't like Hispanic people, don't trust them. All this stuff like that has been bigger than ever, instead of looking at the character of the person. You know, they get caught up in the color of the person or the class of the person. You know, person could be an amazing person. They could literally change the world, and they can have dark, light skin, in between skin, whatever. But people are so caught up on skin. You know, it's like Jesus. Obviously, he was in the Middle East, so he's going to have a Middle Eastern kind of look. You know, that's kind of a dead giveaway. And so is everybody at that time, depending on where they are. But mainly in those sections, people are going to have a tan, a bronze, a darker skin. And, you know, if people look at people in history, a lot of people came from different places, and they're going to have different looks. And we have to decide, like, what the person's character is. Jesus, again, was a man of good purpose and good value. The Son of God, he represented good things. Well, people are so divided. You know, Leonardo da Vinci, different people, Michelangelo, they painted people lighter than what they actually were supposed to be, if you look at it historically, a genetic base. And to kind of change that, to make them look more like what they're familiar instead of the truth of what they are. But realistically, we shouldn't care about if people have dark skin or light skin. We should care about their character. But I don't want to go too long, but that's all I got to say.
Okay. Percy, what's up?
Yeah, you know, I'm in the same camp. At first I was going to say I think it's both, because I do think biology does play a big part in it, because, you know, ultimately we can't escape DNA. No matter how much tanning, how much bleaching you do, you can't escape DNA. But in the same token, I will admit that it is a social construct, because people are often classified based off their skin color opposed to their heritage. Meaning, someone like Bruno Mars, you look at his ancestry, he is predominantly mixed, but because of his characteristics, a lot of people would not put him in a black box to physical characteristics and what you portray, because unfortunately, people judge based off skin color first. You know, I've met a lot of people, you know, black people who were very light skinned, and you know, they could pass as a Hispanic or white person, but they're black. But because of their skin color, they get put in a different box than someone like a Michael Blackson. So I think, you know, based off the history of our country and just society, yeah, we often put boxes on people, and this is just one of the things that they do. I will say, you know, real quick, just to touch on Juliano from the Michael movie. You know, I tried to do a little research on him, but I haven't really found much. But based on what I see, I can see him in that black box or more in as a day category, because he's like,
as a what category?
I will put him either in the black box or the Zendaya category. Meaning
He is in the Zendaya category.
I would say with the difference between him and Zendaya is you can see some of that black feature in him, the curly hair. He's light skinned, but he has a little bit of that hint in his skin color. Whereas Zendaya, she looks like she can pass as white. She looks like she can pass as European. Juliano, you know, I think you'd be hard pressed to pass him as white. I think at most you would say mixed. But you know, looking at him, you know, at first I thought, oh nah, I don't see it. But doing research and looking at pictures of him, you know, I can see him getting casted as black just because of his features. And me and you are actors, we both know a lot of casting directors are only going to see you based on what they see from your pictures, not so much what you tell them. So they look at someone like him, yeah, he might be able to play, you know, different type of roles in terms of race, but I really think he will be put in that black category just because of those characteristics that define him. So it's a tough conversation, but I do think ultimately it is a social construct.
All right. So for me, I'm gonna lean into what you were initially going to go with, which is basically, to me, they are both. Okay. I do believe that race has become a social construct, but I also think that it is a term that denotes biology and genetics. And I'm gonna use a quote by Philip Kitcher. He says, "There is a certain biological phenomenon that stands behind the historic process of dividing people into groups. It's we want to draw those lines, and the basis on which we should decide that is an ethical basis. It's a question of what division, if any, are useful from the point of view of justice and fairness, and that I think is the right way to think about race." So, to Drew's point, which is a philosophically sound point to have and a morally sound point to have, which is basically, in 2026, it would be ideal that we all judge each other based off of the merit of our character and who we are, the spirit that we have. Ideally, right? How we should interact with each other and judge each other. But that's not how it is, which is why race is a social construct that was created a few hundred years ago, right? Because I have another article that says, so the word race, interpreted to mean an identifiable group of people who share a common descent, was introduced into English in the 16th century from the Old French. And it said, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. It says the Oxford English Dictionary cites the earliest example around the mid-16th century and defines its early meaning as a group of people belonging to the same family and descended from a common ancestor. It also introduces the first use of the word race as a term referring to an ethnic group in 1572. An earlier but etymologically distinct word for a similar concept was the Latin word genus, meaning a group sharing qualities related to birth, descent, origin, race, stock, or family. This Latin word is cognate with the Greek words genos, meaning race or kind, and gonos, which has meanings related to birth, offspring, or stock. Now, my understanding of race, okay, which to me, people might not agree, but this is how I view race, and I actually said it in my video. To me, you have Negroids, which are black people, African Americans, Africans. Then you have Caucasoids, which are Europeans, what we know to be white people, Caucasians. Okay. Then you have Mongoloids, which are Asians. Okay. People found in Korea, Japan, China, Thailand, Vietnam, etc. And then you have Dravidians, which are, South Asian people or Southeast Asian people, wherever India is at, what we know to be Indians. And then again, to me, I consider, Arab people to be Caucasians, but you could also throw them in, the Dravidian category because they look very similar to Dravidians. And then the fifth category is what we know to be multiracial people or mulattoes. Latinos, they fit in that fifth category. Why? Because what we know to be Latinos is the result of the intermixing of Europeans, Africans, and Asians, because there were Asians that were brought to, South America, not necessarily the Caribbean Islands, but South America for indentured servitude, not necessarily slavery. All right. That's my understanding of race. Thus, I view the world that way from a scientific standpoint. So I don't look at an Indian person and say, genetically, biologically, I'm the same as him. I don't believe that. I don't look at a white person and say, biologically, we are the same. I don't believe that. I look at the next black person and say, biologically, we are the same. Why? Because we descend from the same mitochondrial Eve that originated in Africa at most 250,000 years ago. That is my understanding of genetics, race, and biology, because that is the whole, reason behind the term a haplogroup. And what is a haplogroup? A haplogroup is a genetic population group sharing a common ancestor identified by specific mutations in mitochondrial DNA or the Y chromosome. They represent branches on the human family tree, mapping ancient paternal or maternal lineages and geographic origins. Haplogroups are classified by letters and numbers, designating deep ancestral clans. So if race is only a social construct, then what? Then it's like, where did I pull all of this from? All of this had to come from somewhere. I can't deny that race is a social construct, because what is racism? Racism is the result of that being used in a negative way to persecute and discriminate against certain people. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the blatant, biological genetic differences amongst us. And I think what happens is you create more conflict and friction by trying to box everybody into the same category to preach a certain philosophy, instead of respecting and acknowledging people's differences. Because if I know I'm not the same as this dude, don't say I'm the same as him, because I'm not. Now I can say we are both humans, right? But let's say this white person is a different variant of humanoid, if you get what I'm saying. So to me, it's both. Because it's like he said, it's a question of what division, if any, are useful from the point of view of justice and fairness. Race, as results to justice and fairness, should be null and void. If we're talking about who should be treated, the best out of a group of these different people, like I said, race shouldn't even be a factor in the conversation of justice and fairness. But if we're talking about biology and genetics, yes, race is a factor. I think some people don't like the terminology. I read that some people like the word population better. Sure, but again, it's tomato. They're synonymous. It means the same thing. You mean the same thing. So it's like what word we use to get there is really inconsequential to the destination of the conversation where we're going. Right. And to me, again, why is there such a thing as racism and discrimination and prejudice? Because we're all the same? No, there's been conflict for hundreds, thousands of years because we are different. It's just that one particular group of people decided to seize, the upper hand and try to say, okay, this person is not entitled to human rights because of the color of their skin, which to me is very immature and elementary. When I sit and I think about racism, I'm like, these are things that little kids would do on a playground. Oh, you can't come over here because you're wearing white shoes or your shirt is black. That's stupid. Because to me, and Drew, you already knows, we had so many conversations. I say this to people all the time. I don't think less of white people. One of my heroes is white, Jason David Frank. Anytime, Drew, you come on, my platform, I always mention Jason David Frank because that man is my hero. I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for the positive example set by a white man. But that is my, initial posit on genetics versus, socialism. So I want to know what your response is to that, if anything. So I want to make a clear distinction. All right, I'm going to be very clear about this. Black people, what we know to be Africans, black people, again, are the sole descendants of the mitochondrial Eve that is estimated to have lived in Africa 250,000 years ago. And it says this was during the time when Homo sapiens were developing as a population distinct from other human subspecies. Who are these other human subspecies? All right, so I have to point out where Caucasians descend from, who they come from. Now they descend from Neanderthals. It says Neanderthals existed roughly 400 to 40,000 years ago. All right, and it says they are an extinct group of archaic humans who inhabited Europe and Western and Central Asia during the middle to late, I'm not even going to pronounce that. And it says Neanderthal extinction occurred roughly 40,000 years ago with the immigration of modern humans. All right. Now it says the first recognized Neanderthal fossil, Neanderthal 1, was discovered in 1856 in the Neander Valley. Where is that? In Germany. Okay. At first, Neanderthal 1 was considered to be one of the lower races in accord with historical race concepts. As more fossils were discovered through the early 20th century, Neanderthals were characterized as a unique species of underdeveloped human. By the mid-20th century, it was believed that human evolution progressed from an ape-like ancestor through a Neanderthal phase to what is considered to be the modern Caucasian. This is facts. They know this. Most people don't know this, so I'm telling you right now. All right? Now it says Neanderthals are named after the Neander Valley in which the first identified specimen was found. The valley was spelled Neanderthal and the species was spelled Neanderthaler in German until the spelling reform of 1901. All right? So this is facts. This is where they come from. That is where we come from. You want to know why? Because there's also an exhibit at the Museum of Natural History, and it's called the Family Tree of Man. You have Neanderthal ranked at number 7, and then you have Chinese people ranked at number 11, and then the American Caucasian ranked at number 12. So this means that Caucasians descend from Asians, Mongoloids. That's where they come from, and it's all in the name. Okay, Caucasian, Caucasian. You remove the Cauc, you get Asian. So this automatically dispels, the theory or the rumor black people gave birth to white people. That is not true. I've heard people say, "Oh, from the dark came the light," and that white people are just Africans that moved over to the Caucasus Mountains in Europe, and then that's why they're like that. No, they're not like that. White people and non-blacks are the descendants of Neanderthals. That is where they come from. Black people are the descendants of the mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah, I will say, Dr. Umar is going to have some lashes for you for that comment, but no, I'm just playing.
Why? Yeah. I mean, let's talk about it. Let's go there because that's actually real.
Dude.
I would say, in my opinion, I 100% agree with you. I think ultimately our society has allowed ourselves to dictate each other based off race. I wouldn't even say race, skin color, heritage, and so forth. And we all often talk about the brown paper bag test in the black community, right? Oh, if you're above this color, you're straight black.
Colorism.
Colorism. I know, for instance, I'll give a quick example. This one Dominican dude I grew up with, parents Dominican, from Dominican Republic, but he considered himself black. And, some people push back on him about it, but he viewed himself as a black person. He looked at his heritage.
Does he have black parents?
No, he's Dominican.
Well, no. Okay. All right. Because this is what I said in the video. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to interject before you continue.
Yeah.
So Dominicans are Latinos. Okay. You cannot be genetically Dominican. You could be culturally Dominican, right? It's like, what's the difference between a Dominican and a Puerto Rican? The language they speak the same language because they both speak Spanish. So really the difference between them is just their geographical point of origin. One of them was born on one island and another one was born on another. But when you put them in the same room, they speak the same language and they relate to one another. It's just that they're from different places. But their history is just the same because they both descend from European colonizers. They descend from Spaniards, some of which descend from African slaves that were brought to the Caribbean islands. Right. So this is why you have what's called an Afro-Latino. And the only difference between an Afro-Latino and me is his geographical point of origin and his linguistic subscription and the culture that he or she subscribes to. That is the only difference. But you find, most Afro-Latinos look like me and look like you. Not all of them, because there are some African, Latinos, and you have Euro-Latinos.
100%. And even then, you see that division in those cultures too. You see it in most cultures. If you're, I remember I grew up with this kid. Everybody thought he was African because he was so dark, but he was from Dominican Republic. He spoke Spanish. His parents was Dominican, but because he was so dark, he faced that backlash from a lot of Hispanic community. Whereas some people who might be a little more fair skinned, who are from Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, they consider themselves a black person because they look at their heritage, they look at, the history of their people, and they identify with that. And, this is a multi-layered conversation because ultimately I think race has been more of a trouble in our society than it has been helpful because
it's what you make of it. It's like he said, it's what the conversation of race is what you make it. It's like you can have a conversation in a productive way, and then you can have that same conversation in a destructive way. And then we saw what happens if the wrong people have that conversation left to their own devices, they cause destruction and death. It's like what's the whole reason behind genocide?
No, I agree.
100%. Yeah, I'll let you go ahead, Drew. I'll let you chime in.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. So the thing about it is, I understand both points by you guys, which are really great points. But I strongly believe that God made us all to be the same. You know, we just came from different climates. You know, and I think we all, I mean, we could do same blood transfusion, heart transplants, things like that. So we are technically supposed to be the same. I just think that people, because even in the Bible, I don't know how much you guys know about the Old Testament, but Moses's sister had a problem with his wife because she was from the Ethiopian area. Okay. And really what it was about was because she had dark skin and she showed prejudice. And you guys are going to see where this goes. So people ask, like, what does the Bible feel about prejudice? I'm sure you guys heard that, right? Am I right, guys?
Yes.
Expound. Go ahead.
Okay. So people ask that. Well, what does the Bible say about prejudice situations? Well, God gives his answer in this one. So when God catches on that she has a color issue and he catches that, he immediately gave her leprosy. Okay, and it was
repeat that one more time. I apologize. I was just closing.
God gave her leprosy
because
she was prejudiced against her sister-in-law because of her skin color.
Okay.
So that's a big thing that people need to remember is God does not stand for prejudice, you know, and as he did, you know, with her, he gave her leprosy because of how she acted. And God wanted to make known that we are all the same. We're from different places, but we are all the same people. We might speak different languages, how we might handle things culturally, but we are all still human beings at the end of the day. And we should have coexistence, harmony between us, you know? And
so I just want to rebut that a little bit. So can you at least acknowledge that there are different variants of humans?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right, because I get this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't disagree with where you're going with it from a moral standpoint. If everybody thought like you, we would be living in a utopia right now. If everybody thought that way, but we know that the majority of people don't feel that way. I was actually just telling. I was talking to LeVar. If y'all remember LeVar, the one who does a lot of the sports or boxing quick takes, you know, on the channel. And I was telling him, I said, you don't think that you? I said, do you think that black people are the only, you know, types of people that talk about, you know, white people behind closed doors? No, white people talk about us behind closed doors. These are just the conversations that we have. Whether we want to admit it or not, there's always a part of us that has some sort of prejudices, you know, whatsoever. Some more so than others.
Yes. I agree. I agree. I don't disagree with that in any way, buddy, because, you know, people, they do, let's be honest, they do have their hangups. Some people have hangups about things. I mean, there's some people that don't have any hangups realistically. They're like, hey, you know, whatever. And we all know people like that. But we know that there's people behind closed doors, you know, that do that. But every race of people does that, you know.
Exactly,
like,
right.
And that's the thing about it. So, you know, it's silly realistically. Especially, like, it's one thing to talk about something. It's another thing to believe what you're saying. Am I making sense, guys?
You're making 100% sense. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you can talk about that, but do you truly believe that? Is that what you think? You think, I don't know, let's say people from Brazil are superior to everybody here on the planet or something like that. Do you truly believe that? You know, honestly, truthfully. And some people, you know, we all know about the skin bleaching in India. We know about the skin bleaching in Latin countries and Mexico. Am I right, guys? We all know about that. They got a skin, I think they call it in India, light and lovely. Okay. And I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like a commercial.
Yeah, but a lot of that comes from you know, colorism comes from Europe. There's people in the Dominican Republic that, again, are prejudiced against darker skinned Dominicans.
Yes.
You know, that cross over into their side of the island, they get persecuted for the color of their skin. And where does that come from? People that created the social construct in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's where it started.
Where that comes from. But you know, what I'm saying is that it still does have merit, you know, from a biological, genetic, scientific standpoint. It does, because there are certain things that, let's say, you know, Percy, that Natalie is predisposed to than you are. And why is that? Because y'all are exactly the same? No, it's because she is different than you. And I, you know what, the list of genetic and congenital conditions that white people, Europeans are predisposed to versus black people.
Absolutely.
Well, that's because what I'm the point of this conversation is to people to acknowledge both, you know, and to get people to see that other perspective of it. Because I don't believe in being colorblind in a world that blatantly sees color. That's my thing. Because I said this so many times, we are not living in a post-racial society, whether we want to admit it or not. I think a lot of people like to view things that way until they see it, you know, firsthand, and then they're like, oh wow, shit is really racist out here, you know.
Absolutely. And I'll jump in real quick and I'll say this, you know, because me and Natalie was just talking about that the other day, even before you brought up this quick take. You know, I appreciate when, you know, especially white people, because you often hear, I don't see color. You know, I appreciate the sentiment because I get what you're saying. Like, you don't judge somebody based off the color. But at the same time, I also think you do a disservice when you say that, because at the end of the day, you do see color. You just choose not to go by the history of your people or the people around you that judge people based off the color of their skin. So I think part of the point you and Drew was talking about behind, you know, people having these conversations behind closed doors, I think we're getting to the point in society where, as people, you know, the newer generations come up and everything, will it get better? I'm not sure. But unfortunately, a lot of trauma and a lot of history gets passed down through generation and generation. And we're starting to see more, you know, younger people, I would say under the age of 45, you know, they're trying to, you know, remove some of that history that their parents and grandparents came from. And they're trying to push back those boundaries. But at the same time, too, I think we also have to acknowledge, yeah, at the same time, yeah, you're white, I'm black, you're Hispanic or whatever, but that is not the end all be all to how we see each other. And I think, you know, these conversations need to be had, because the whole I don't see color, as great that of how it sounds, it also doesn't acknowledge the fact that there is color. People are different. And we have to acknowledge that before we can move forward, opposed to saying, I don't see color.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, well, since there's no one saying anything, it's like me. All right, so this is what I said. Well, one of the things that I said. It's like, all right, just because a dog and a wolf and a coyote, all right, they're all canines, but they're still different. To say, oh, okay, well, it's fine for me to house, you know, a domesticated, you know, a doodle with a fucking wolf, you know, found in the mountains somewhere, and then think that they're going to operate and behave the same way. No, shit's probably going to get crazy because they're different from each other. It's the same thing. A lion is a feline, right? But so is a house cat. Are you gonna house them together? No, you're not, because it's like we acknowledge we don't have a problem acknowledging the differences, you know, of animals, you know, and we're mammals too. The only difference is we just have the benefit of higher intelligence than they do. You know, I mean, in some cases, because animals are intelligent too, it's just that they just can't articulate. I mean, that's pretty much it. They think and feel the same way that we do. It just at a lower frequency, except for cats. I think cats and dogs are probably, you know, more intelligent, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah. I wonder, it's like, why do people have such a hard time with that? Because again, the controversy of it is, again, I don't believe that, okay, and let's be real, and I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted, you know, the two of you guys to come on here is not because for you guys just to agree with me, but to see where we can go with disagreement also and what can become of that. Right. What would you consider Zendaya's child with Tom Holland to be if she were to have a child with him? And either one of you guys can answer that.
I'm honestly gonna say white.
Why would you say that? Just curious.
And you know,
because I agree with you, but I want to know why.
So part of and I was going to bring this up after you was done, but I'll bring it up now. Mm-hmm. One of the things Dr. Umar talks about is mixed race people, and I don't agree with a lot of his comments. I agree with most of his comments, but I also think sometimes his rhetoric can make people of these mixed race families and couples look at race a different way. I don't know how Zendaya feels. She's never publicly spoke about it, but obviously we've seen other celebrities who are mixed race, very light skinned, address some of these comments. Me, in my opinion, I don't think Zendaya view herself as black. I think she views herself as mixed or maybe white leaning because clearly she has a much stronger relationship with her white mom. So when Zendaya and Tom Holland have a child, as most likely the chance of it coming out looking like me and you is very slim. And I think there is going to be, and it's not Zendaya's fault, but I think a lot of people in her circle and fans and people are going to put that label on her child as white because Tom Holland clearly is white. Zendaya is mixed, but she's more white leaning. So it's just natural to assume that the child.
Well, because my problem is that people would actually consider not only Zendaya but her child with Tom Holland to be black. That's my biggest problem, and that's where me and a lot of the commenters on that my most recent video disagree. Is that they would say, oh no, her child is black because her father, Zendaya's father, is black. That's not how it works. That's not how genetics and biology actually works. It's not. That's my problem. It's like me and you will see the child as predominantly white from a genetic standpoint, but really what we want to call the child is mixed, multiracial. But some people will say, oh no, that is a black child. How? And Drew, I want you to chime in on this because I'm curious, because again, the two of you guys are both in interracial relationships. So again, this is why you guys are the best types of guests to have to talk about this.
Yeah, and I do have a kid, so I could tell you. The thing about it is, like how I look at my son as an example, and how I explain it to him is, you're part of mommy, you're part of dad. That's how it works. You exist between the both worlds. It's like Bruce Lee and Shannon and Linda Lee. When they had kids, they had Brandon, they had Shannon. It come from both worlds. Father being from Hong Kong descent, and mother being from Caucasian descent. And, I know people say, well, that kind of confuses things. I said, not really. If we were more accepting in society and just understand you're both of your parents, it's a simple concept if you think about it. But people don't embrace that. And me having to live it myself, I understand, and prior to that, guys, let me break this down real quick for you guys, if you guys don't mind. Prior to that, my father's second marriage, he was married to a Caucasian woman. So my brother and sister, we have different moms, same dad. Okay. They came out very kind of Caucasian, Middle Eastern kind of look to them. And that's my brother and that's my sister. You see what I mean? So the thing about it is they come from both worlds. And that's how they embrace it. They're like, we're from both worlds. Now, some people like Rashida Jones. You guys know who she is, right?
I've heard the name. I've heard the name. Is that a comedian?
Quincy Jones' daughter. Quincy Jones' daughter.
Boom, yeah.
Okay. Her mother's Caucasian. Quincy Jones is obviously, he's black family. Rashida Jones, she embraces more black culture than Caucasian culture, but at the same time, she's loving towards both, Some people choose to pick a side, let's bring up Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. How many times did we hear throughout the years, The Rock is not black, The Rock is not black, The Rock is not black, and people that were young had no idea who the man's father was. I'm a wrestling fan from back in the day, so I knew exactly who his dad was. His dad was the soul man, Rocky Johnson, big afro, the first African-American tag team champions in history, him and Tony Atlas. That's his dad. Okay. So I'm like, yes, his mom is Etta. I know. So he's of both worlds. And people are like, well, why doesn't he embrace this side? Well, that's easy because he spent more time with mom than dad. That's just how it was. He spent more time with her family and with her than he did her father. So some people naturally latch on to what they're closer to because of situations. But if, like, as an example with myself, if my son is equally spending time with me and mom both, he's going to embrace both sides. And it's actually pretty more easy. It's a lot easier than what people think to embrace the sides. It's actually people on the outside that try to mess it up for people that are just nosy and want to be hateful, but it's not difficult to embrace both sides.
Well, all right, so let me ask you
Like
something. All right, so let me ask you something. So embracing both sides, what do you mean by sides? Because I want to emphasize something.
Sure. So it means embracing your father's upbringing and culture, your mom's upbringing and culture.
Right, exactly. So so you can embrace the culture, but how can you embrace your genetics? You can't. You can't. So if Rashida Jones, I'm looking right at her, there's no way she can say that I'm embracing the genetics. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can only embrace the culture, right? But you can't choose your genetics. That's just something that you are. Because if I say, okay, and this is as simple as I can put it. If you take a lion and you take a tiger and you breed them together, can you say, oh, that tiger, that liger is going to embrace both sides? No, that liger is now a new thing as a result of the mixing of a lion and a tiger. Right? And again, the only difference between a liger and a human being is that, again, the liger can't articulate, but it's not sound to say that, oh, well the liger can embrace both sides. No, it can't. It's now a new thing, which is what I was arguing, is that Juliano is not black. If I were to say Rashida Jones, to me, again, she's a biracial person because her mother is white and her father is black. So she became something new. Absolutely. She can embrace the culture. And this is what Dr. Umar Johnson says, is that you didn't ask to have two different parents, but you do have a decision to embrace one culture over the other. And it's like, well, okay, if you embrace black culture, then welcome. But my point is that what is the use of these terms of biracial, multiracial, mulatto, hybrid, if we're going to sit and just call somebody one thing? So a biracial child is of two cultures, but is of a new thing genetically by itself. That's the point that I'm making. Because if I have, sex with a white woman and then we have a child, I can raise my child within the culture, but I cannot say you are black because now you are something different than I am. But I can say, I can expose you to sports. I can expose you to music. I can expose you to different aspects, spirituality, books and different things. Yeah, I could implant blackness into his or her mind, but genetically, it's not sound to say, oh, she is black and she is white. No, the mother is white. The father is black. She is now a hybrid, right? Because all right, like let's say me and you both like sci-fi, right? We're like Alien. In Requiem, when you had the Predalien, it was neither. It became a new thing as a result of that, because it didn't run up on the predators and say, oh, I'm you too. No, this shit knew it was different than them. And it's the same thing. It became something new. It was neither an alien. It was neither a predator. It became a Predalien. That's what it became. You want to talk about Alien Resurrection? Same thing, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, at the end of the damn movie, all right, it was I forgot the actress's name. I forgot her name.
Winona Ryder?
Yeah, Sigourney Weaver. At the end of the movie, yeah, the shit that the pregnant alien gave birth to, that human thing, it was neither human nor alien. It was something new. But she couldn't come out and say, "Oh, you're human." No, you're not. If you've seen the movie, you know damn well that shit was not.
Yeah.
That shit was
not.
And but with all that said, simply put, people were getting mad at me for stating the blatant obvious of the facts. Because if I get Percy, if I get somebody to play you in the Percy Brown biopic movie, would you feel comfortable if I got some light-skinned, Latino kid to portray you?
No.
This is your question. Would you be comfortable with me getting a light-skinned Latino person to portray you that looks nothing like you? If I took you when you was a kid, and then this kid, y'all look nothing alike, would you be comfortable with that?
No.
But people are comfortable with Juliano playing Michael Jackson because, again, their ideology is, oh, he is black. How? He doesn't look the part, and genetically, I know he's not the part because I've seen his parents. He's not that. So that's all I was saying. But I wanted to get this, my opinion in front of y'all two. And again, whether you agreed or disagree, great. But I just wanted to see where it was going to go and then give my subs an opportunity to hear this conversation straight up where I'm talking about this topic, dead on, versus it being in the middle of a review.
Right.
Let me real quick, Drew. Let me ask you. What you said you saw his parents? What are they?
Latinos.
Latinos. Okay,
Like
so
they look like him. So basically, they are racially ambiguous people. Racially ambiguous. So it's like you couldn't put a finger on what Zendaya is until you saw her parents. It's the same thing with them, but that's where they come from. They are Latinos. And what were our Latinos? Spin the block on what I said again. Latinos are the result of the mixing of blacks and Europeans primarily, and then some Asians, but those are as it relates to South American people, Mexico and down. But on the Caribbean islands, the reason why they look like that, Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, is because they have the traits of black people and Europeans. That's why you might see let's say a Puerto Rican girl with thicker lips, a little bit. Why? Because of her genetics, her phenotype.
Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong, and I would just say too, and I'll let Drew go after I say this, but I think, me and you, we're actors, right? We understand how people can judge based off appearance. Now, I would say in his defense, his race is probably Hispanic, but casting and the way how people look at him, and this goes back to our conversation about race is judged based off, or people judge people based off how they look. You could be, you could look like Zendaya, and people gonna either treat you as biracial or they're gonna look at you one way or the other. With him, yeah, he's Hispanic, but he also passes off to some people. He will pass off as black.
I don't know how. I don't know how, because like I said, I know what real Afro Latinos look like, and they look like me and you and Drew. They don't look like him. This is what I'm saying. That's like them trying to get Zendaya to portray Diana Ross. It's like she looks nothing like Diana Ross. So why would you cast her as that? Because people are quick to stand. Oh, he's black. No, because look at Alfonso Ribeiro's kids, and I think you've seen pictures of his kids. If either one of y'all want to Google those kids right now. Do those kids look black to you?
No.
This is what I'm saying. But it's not scientifically accurate to say, oh, that's a black kid. No, it's not. Because his kids legit got blonde hair and blue eyes. How the hell can we call them black? But some people will say, oh, well, any child that Zendaya has is black. No, it doesn't work like that. Because when I mentioned the mitochondrial Eve, genetics passes down matrilineally. Why? Okay, because I don't know, again, like Drew, I'm not sure what your beliefs are, but to me, I don't believe with the Christian and or Catholic, phrase that says that you are the seed of your father. Scientifically, biologically, that's not accurate. We are the seeds of our mothers. Or it's like how they say Eve came from Adam's rib. That's not true. You know what I'm saying? A man can come from a woman can never come from a man. When we were conceived, we spent 9 months in the womb with our mothers. Where do we get the majority of ourselves from? Her. Why? Because we were literally sharing her body. Whatever she ate, we ate. Whatever she felt, we felt. So a lot of that gets passed down matrilineally. Not to say that, Drew, your cells didn't reach your son. Of course they did. But the majority of your son's cells come from his mother. This is just facts. It's because people put it's like humans, we put our own spin on things to fit how we want to see things and to fit our perceptions, when again that goes against what science can prove. But what are you gonna say, Percy?
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree with you, but also disagree. Like, for prime example, one of my cousins, Aaron. So he comes from a biracial family. His mom, my cousin Aaron.
Okay.
His mom is black. His father is from England. He is white passing. The dude, he's lighter than Zendaya. Like, he looks like Tom Holland skin wise, but obviously you look at his features. He has the slightly curly hair. He has some of the black characteristics, but skin color wise, he's very, very fair skinned. Whereas you look at his brother, he's very dark skinned. He doesn't have the same. They clearly look different. So a lot of people think when they look at him, and I remember talking about this years ago, people think one of them is adopted to the family because they clearly don't look alike. I think with genetics, it's hard to know exactly. I get your point that we a lot of times we get our characteristics from the mother side of things, but
cells,
cells, yeah.
But because if you look at me, I'm a mix of my dad and my mom. I don't look 100% like my mom. I don't look like 100% like my dad. But the thing is, again, like I got the majority of my cells from my mom. This is facts. This is why most people, not all, but most people, again, they just have a different. I mean, this is true. I mean, y'all can attest to this if you agree. But most children are more closer to the mothers than they are the dads. There's just a maternal connection that a mother has with their children, and that again, it further proves the point that I made. So it's like that connection is forged because you shared, you were in your mother's womb for 9 months.
Yeah, I get you. I get your point. I think for me, it's just like I look at it. I think the mother's bond with children is going to be a lot different than a child's bond with the father. Most like you said, because the mother carries the child for 9 months. There's that bond, cells, and everything. There is. But biologically, though, it's an interesting conversation because I look at the way how like my own family, like my adoptive mom. So I'm biologically from my real parents, half black, half Cuban. But I look at my adopted mom. She's black and Native American, but her children are completely different. My sister looks Dominican because she's very light skinned. She looked like Nicki Minaj a little bit. My brother looks like Michael Blackson, and they have the same parents, but it's just weird how my sister came out looking a lot different than my brother. So I think
what race is the mother again? Is she black?
Yes.
Right. So a black woman is the only race of woman. Oh damn, my computer. A black woman is the only race of woman that could bear a child of all skin, pigmentations. This is facts.
You're not right. You're not wrong.
Also,
You're not wrong.
because Drew, I just looked this up on Google. Rashida Jones, her I guess her partner, her life partner is Ezra Koenig. What would you consider her children to be when she has kids with him? If she didn't already, if it says yes, they welcomed the baby boy in 2016. What is their son what is their son?
I look at it as part her, part him.
And what is she?
She's part Quincy, part her mom.
So what you're saying is you would consider that child to be black, is what you're saying.
It's in there.
It's not, but it's not though, because if it's like I said, if you take a lion and a tiger and you mix it, you get something new. That child is nothing like me. That child is nothing like Percy. That child is more Caucasian, if anything, because again, her mother was white. She's white. She's having sex with a white person. So that baby genetically is not going to have any traces of Quincy whatsoever, because that's how genetic works. Matrilineally, remember I said that matrilineal DNA gets passed down. So if I look up that child right now, that child is not going to have any sort of he's not even going to look like Juliano from the Michael movie. This is what I'm saying. But I don't again, I'm not really following why people have such a hard time just putting people in the category that they belong in.
I think because, like we said, people judge based off characteristics opposed to your ethnicity, and that's just the unfortunate reality. Like I said, Zendaya. You look at Doja Cat. You look at some of these, celebrities, for instance, because most people know them. They may feel a certain way, but the audience, the media, the publicists, they treat them. They put them in a certain box because, unfortunately, they might associate. I don't know. They never really publicly speak on which side they identify, and they don't have to. But at the end of the day, I think people just go based off how you look, opposed to what you identify as. So you can be, let's say, Dimitri, you took a DNA test, ancestry test, and it came out that you was 55% Dominican and 45%
But
black.
remember that's an impossibility because the term Dominican denotes language and geography. It doesn't denote genetics.
Oh, Hispanic. Rather.
Because there is, when we fill out government paperwork, you only got 4 or 5 boxes on there. There's literally the black, African American, white Caucasian, what Middle Eastern, and what I don't know what the other one is because I don't never check the box, so I don't read it.
Usually have mixed,
right?
Ethnically ambiguous.
Bam. So you see what I'm saying? So it's like, again, like you can identify as something, and again, what is that? Culture. But you can't bypass genetics. You can't do that because if you have one substance, right? You have plain water, and then you introduce a new substance to that plain water. It has now become a new substance as a result of that combination, right? It's like I'm sure I literally got Yu-Gi-Oh on the TV right now. If you take 2 monsters and then use the polymerization card, right? Are we still gonna say, oh, this is still a dark magician? No, it has become now the black magic magician. I forgot what was it. I forgot what it was, but that's what I'm saying. It becomes something new. You and I both were able to acknowledge damn near almost 2 years ago that Kamala Harris is not black. She's not. And I went through the whole history as for why. And we know ethnically where she leans towards, which is her Indian roots, not black people. If she ever appeared to be a black woman, this was literally just to get people, to get behind her. But in reality, this was not a black woman. And this is not to say that people of, which I've never alluded to that people of mixed race are less than or anything like that. But what coming off of all the lectures and videos that I've watched over the last 5-6 years is like, I see that people and I have a particular issue with this, why people try to, again, multiculturalize blackness. And then now they say, oh, well, Puerto Ricans are black. No, they're not. And then they're saying, oh, well, Asians are black too. No, they're not. Or how they say, oh, from the darkness came the light, and that Europeans are just Africans that went from Africa to the Caucasus Mountains. And that's not true either. And I can prove that. Like, white people know where they come from. I can get into it if y'all want to, but it's just like, that doesn't make sense. It's because everybody wants to put everyone in a box, but human history, thousands of years, has told me otherwise. Because we want to talk about, like the Bible and all that, which is about 6,000 years old, is fraught with conflict, genocide, murders, all types of shit. But we're all the same? No, I don't agree. I don't agree. It's like, if I were ever to be with a white woman, she can never tell me that genetically we are the same. It's like, we actually can relate to each other by learning of each other's differences. Bro, for crying out loud, I was just in a play with a white girl that played my girlfriend. And it's like, through conversations with her and I are very different. And that was probably like the closest I've been to a white woman literally since high school. Again, I don't have any white friends like that. I don't really hang out with white people that way. I see them in passing. So it's like, with her, it's like, yeah, to say that her and I are the same, that would be totally false and incorrect.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
Drew, what you think, man? Drew, you still there?
I'm still here, man. I'm just taking in what you guys are doing. All right. So here's what I say to that is, because obviously, I sound like Keanu Reeves, as everybody says, or Michelangelo, right? So obviously, you could tell I grew up in different climates, So I look at things a little different with that because, I connect with a lot of Caucasian community and Samoan community, Filipino community, more than I do the Black community in a lot of ways, just because of how I grew up, and because of that, I'm going to approach things different. So like, if you said, you were in a play with the young lady that played your girlfriend, if I had a conversation with her, we could probably connect to some things, because
is that because of the culture that you've been exposed to that you resonate with more so than, again, you from a genetic standpoint? That speaks to, again, what you align with culturally.
Right.
But yeah, you can see, I just wanted to specify that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because and people look down, and so guys, I'm old enough because I'm 43. So, I'm old enough to where people would look down on me because of the way that I talked. And because
Yeah, I
of the
know.
culture I came from. And
Right.
I know you don't. And I know
Yeah.
you don't either, Percy, but I grew up in that time where that was a big thing. This was at where the Nation of Islam was at college, I went to and stuff like that, and Hebrew Israelites and stuff. I wasn't exactly everybody's favorite, but I accepted the fact that I was different and that I grew up differently, So, I mean, my stepbrother, he's Jewish, I grew up way different and I'm proud of it for what it is, and it's a really cool thing. And I've always looked at myself because people ask me what I am, and I'm just like, I'm just Drew. That's just it. Because in me, there are many things, so I can't be specific to one, for myself. I just say I'm just me.
So
And that's just how I approach it.
Yeah, let me ask you. I mean, because we're friends, so I can ask you this. So,
Yeah, of course.
if so, all right. So, simply put, when you, let's say, have to fill out government paperwork, which box did you check off?
Oh man, Caucasian every time.
He said that cool as a cucumber.
Every time, man. That's what I check every time. I told people, I was like, I tell people, and they said, well, did you ever know that you're black? I said, well, technically not until I was like 10, 11 years old is when somebody really referred to me as that. Until then, I seriously thought I was Caucasian because color was never an issue.
So you still do that to this day?
Yeah, I put that down there.
So all right. So with that said, then how can you call your son black if you yourself, and again, we're friends. Like I said, we just keep it real on here. Again,
Right.
My whole point in having this conversation is so we both can walk away from different perspectives, because again, it's like there's other people listening too. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like with that said, it's like your son is the last person to ever want to check off, the black box, because not only does his father identify as Caucasian, but then his son not only genetically something to do, but then his father is of more leaning more towards other cultures than black culture. And again, like there's nothing wrong with that. That's like saying like Bruce Leroy, is wrong for embracing martial arts in Asian culture in the damn movie. People's calling him cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Whatever resonates for you and makes you a better person, that's fine.
Right.
Because I don't, particularly see things that way, doesn't give me the right to say that you're wrong or incorrect. But as it relates to, again, when we're talking about culture versus, genetics, it's like, this further proves the point that I was trying to make to the other subscribers,
right.
The other day.
No, absolutely. And here's what I have to say, in reference to my son, what I was telling you guys, I just tell him you're part me and you're part mom. So that means you're part of my personality and what I am, and you're part of mom's personality and what she is, and we're both together. Yeah. So I kind of just put it like that. So yeah, but I've never, I've never embraced checking that box that says black, African American, whatever. Even from the time I was a kid, I was like, no, don't check that. Because sometimes, they'll check the box for you. I grew up at the time, sometimes they just check the box for you, And I even in high school, I would be like, no, I don't want to check that box. And I'd be like, why not? I was like, because that's not fully who I am. So I'll take the Caucasian card, please.
And let me just ask you, was your father a Caucasian European man?
No, he was not. My mom came from that bloodline, actually.
So your mother was white.
She was Native American, Caucasian, Jewish, and black ancestry.
So your mother was multiracial.
Oh, very multiracial. Yeah, my mom's very multiracial.
Okay, right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, either way, the point that I was trying to drive again, is that it's not scientifically sound to say that someone of two different parents is one thing. And then also can admit that, yes, race is a social construct that has been used to sow discord and racism and discrimination amongst people when, like you said earlier, we should be judging people based off of their character. Because although most people might think, again, I don't like white people, which is not true. Because again, I've said publicly as a fucking black man that loves Dr. Umar Johnson, Young Pharaoh, Brother Polite, all these types of people that, yo, Jason David Frank is up there with Will Smith and Michael Jackson. Damn right. Spider-Man is my favorite fucking superhero. Batman are my favorite superheroes. What are they? They're white. Black Panther is number 3. Watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I didn't like, Zach Walter Jones just because he was black. No, I was rocking with Tommy Oliver.
Yeah.
So I can still acknowledge, the benefit that white people have had on me. I'm like, yo, again, when I moved out of my father's house, when I was younger, dude, I moved in with my ex-girlfriend's, boss's house, and they treated me better than all my relatives combined. And then they were Polish. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, I say that, a racist person, can't say that. I can say these things. But by me saying that, well, all right, well, not only do I know that I'm biologically different than a white person, but I know that if I have a son with an Asian woman, that my son is going to be biologically different than me. No matter how much I try to raise him within my culture, at the end of the day, science can prove that he and I are different. He is something new as a result of that. And that's all I was saying. But when I tell you, again, I blocked probably 20 people because of that. Like even some of them longtime subscribers, and somebody was like, oh, that's a stupid take. And I said, oh, blocked. Because again, even if I don't agree with Percy or I don't agree with you, that doesn't give me the right to call you stupid or to say what you're saying is stupid, because I don't know what led you to that understanding. And even if I might understand it, I gotta respect it.
Right. No, I feel you on that one, man.
Yeah, I think, some of those people you might could have blocked. I think, part of this conversation people need to hear is this conversation, because a lot of people don't have these type of conversations. And I think that's why so many people don't understand your point, because a lot of people aren't taught anything but beyond the surface level. They always talk about what you look like, but they don't talk about what's beneath that. And so a lot of people just judge based on what they see opposed to what's behind the lens. And I think, these conversations are important, because I think, everybody is going to feel a different way on this topic. But the most we can do is open that discussion and that discourse, because some people, like Drew said, depending on how you grow up and how you are raised, you're going to view this conversation one way or another. Some people might walk away and say, yo, they made some good points. I didn't think about that. Other people might look at this and say, or listen to this and say, they just talked a bunch of nonsense. But I think
those people are idiots. Well, those people are idiots, and they probably don't read a lot of books, because those are the people that will read something and then see something that they don't like and just judge the rest of the book based off of the first 5 or so pages that they read. Because I'll let you finish. Me is like my YouTube channel. I don't cater my YouTube channel. I don't cater my YouTube channel to other people's opinions. I didn't get on YouTube to be the motherfucker that everybody agrees with. No, I came on YouTube to express my opinions and express how I feel, what I think, and then the people that understand, great. And then there's people that don't. It's not for them, especially those people that will start hooting and hollering just because, again, I don't agree with them. It's like, all right, well, if you were only on my YouTube channel as long as I was in agreement with you, then this is not the channel you belong on. Period. But that's just my belief, because my granddad says 2 people can disagree, but that doesn't mean that they have to be disagreeable. That's a fact. Right. I can hear something blatantly different than the way that I think from Drew, but if I value him as another man, as a human being, then it's for me to respect that. I wouldn't want you or Drew to walk away and be like, oh, well, damn, I feel like Dimitri doesn't respect me just because I didn't agree with him. It's like, first, times we had quick takes and we didn't agree. Plenty of times. Multiple of them. Like, they're mostly we agree, but then there are other quick takes that we didn't. But again, it's not like you felt disrespected because I didn't agree. You know what I'm saying? It's like, again, if I don't agree with somebody, all right, well, they just think differently than I do. But I'm not trying to, let's say, force my opinion onto Drew just because he doesn't think that way that I do. which to me I think is wrong. And that's the whole reason why I feel like human history has been the way that it is, because people cannot respect someone else's way of life, someone else's way of thinking. I'm a fucking free thinker. You know what I'm saying? That's why I have no qualms about blocking somebody, because it's just like, yo, if you can't respect my opinion, not only do you not understand, but you don't respect it, then get the fuck out of here, because this is not for you. I could go the easy route and then just tiptoe and walk on eggshells and just, you know, say what everybody likes and thinks. I feel like much better when you stay true to yourself. My what you call it, my review, yeah, I could have easily just been like, hey guys, the movie was great, it was awesome, the king of pop, yeah. No, y'all wanted my honest opinion. I gave you my fucking honest opinion. And the honest opinion was, bro, I didn't feel like I was watching Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. I was watching 4 black guys and 1 Latino kid that they put a prosthetic afro wig, because his hair don't naturally grow like that, and they darkened his face. Well, maybe if you had just gotten a black actor, then you wouldn't have had to do all of that. He's a great dancer, but he just didn't convince me of that. I'm not going to get Tobey Maguire to portray Denzel Washington in a fucking movie. It doesn't work like that. No one's going to be convinced. I can't be a young freaking Leonardo DiCaprio in the Leonardo DiCaprio biopic. Then you'd be like, well, why couldn't he just get a white guy for that character? You know what I'm saying? That's not one of those people. Michael Jackson, to me, is not one of those people where you can do stuff like that. At least for someone like me that thinks the way that I do.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I'm gonna go try it for the Leonardo DiCaprio part, though.
All right, good luck. Good luck with that, bro. Because this is what I'm saying. They might put you in the damn movie, and then people are going to be like, well, that's not how he looked back in the day. That's not how he looked back in the day. And it's like, we can't fault people for that, because what somebody told me was that, oh, well, they were trying to cast somebody. I think that was you. Oh, no, I think it was somebody else. I don't know. They're like, they cast somebody to look more like Jafar Jackson.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, you were supposed to get somebody that looks like the character that the movie is about. They did that in the 90s. Why couldn't you guys do that now? Because they had Jason Weaver, you know, as young Michael Jackson, and then they had Wiley Draper, rest in peace, as older Michael Jackson, and they both look like Michael Jackson in those time periods of his life. But for some reason, they couldn't do that in 2026, because to me, I feel that what they're trying to do is, I mean, well, it's already happened anyway, because Michael Jackson is a very multicultural, you know, artist, and he sought to be that, to bring people together, which I get that. But at the same time, now it's like when we think of the image of Michael Jackson, we're now starting to see the image that, you know, he became, you know, later on in his life, and not the image that he was, you know, up until, you know, his mid late 20s. So when we think of Michael Jackson now, we're not going to think, oh, this was a black African American man. We're not going to think that anymore. Why? Because, okay, we got, you know, his 2 or 3 kids. They don't look like me. Okay. And then when they finally did the $150 million movie, they got kids that don't really look like him. I mean, Jafar did his thing, but that was with the help of prosthetics and cosmetics and all that shit. But again, when we think of the Jackson family, we're not going to see black people anymore. And this is what happens. And I feel like the ultimate goal is for the black population to look like a bunch of Zendayas. And what's his name? Alfonso Ribero's kids. That's what they want. At least in America, because that won't happen in Africa. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't disagree with that point. I 100% agree. I think Zendaya is seen. Zendaya types are seen more desirable than someone like a Megan Thee Stallion, who's very attractive. But we also gotta admit, you know, to the audience, Zendaya is a much more digestible person than a Megan, and that's just because people have their own preconceived notions on race and everything, and it's just
that's not even that. It's Eurocentric standards.
Yeah,
that's just the standards. You know what I mean? Like that's why I said in my video. I said back in the day when I used to watch Saved by the Bell, I used to think Kelly Kapowski was the prettiest girl on the show. If you asked me when I was in the 4th grade, I would have said, "Oh, who's your favorite girl?" I would have told you Kelly. But then as I got older, I was like, one, I don't even really find Kelly that attractive anymore. And who's the baddie to me? Lark Voorhees, Lisa Turtle. That to me, she's the baddie on the show. Because again, why did I think that? Because in all the movies, cartoon movies, who were the damsel in distress? Who were the pretty who were the pretty Disney princesses? They were all white for the most part, other than Jasmine from Aladdin. They were all white. In Power Rangers, I mean, who's the sexiest one on? I mean, if Amy Jo Johnson threw it at me now, I would still catch it. But who was who was the pretty one, Amy Jo Johnson. Some people say it was Tui, but to me, I thought it was her. So it's like my vision in terms of what I liked in women was a bit different when I was a kid because of what I was being programmed with in TV. Until I got older, matured, and I was exposed to more, that's how I truly developed my preferences. Because to me, it's like my preferences as a kid is not real. Because again, all I'm watching on TV is white women. Because y'all both dating white women. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. I'm just saying. And then in school, there weren't a whole lot of teachers. They were all white teachers. So I was surrounded by nothing but white women all the time until again I got older. And then I started to see, oh, okay, this is okay. So now my vision of beauty has changed. Do I think certain white chicks are attractive? Yeah. And I'm gonna name them. Yes, Jules. I'm gonna always say that. Freaking Emma Watson from Harry Potter, Hermione. And I'm gonna throw her in there because she looked good too. Sky Nicholson, she's a boxer. Y'all probably don't know who she is, but she's cute. And
I know who she is.
You know who she is? Yeah, she's cute. She's really cute. Damn,
Caitlin Clark.
Who?
No.
I don't even know who that is. Damn, who's the last
that basketball player girl?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say Margot Robbie, but that's typical. Everybody.
Yeah, she's good looking, man. I'm not.
All right, so I'm gonna throw her in there. There's somebody I'm missing. So I said, what the fuck? I said yes, Jules. I said Emma Watson, Sky Nicholson, and Margot Robbie. There's someone else. Yes, I don't know.
Johansson.
Who? Hell no.
Johansson.
Hell no. She don't have. If you. No, I'm good on that. I'm good on Sini Sweet. Because you look at, I mean, to me again, if you look, all right, what I like most about white women literally reminds me of black chicks, and this is why, again, it's like I personally, between the three of us, like I would much prefer to date a black woman because again, anything that I find attractive about a white woman, I could easily find that times 10 in a black woman. Right? Because with Emma Watson, why do I think she's attractive? Because she's cute. She looked good. Then you have Yes Jules, her body. That her body's crazy. And then Sky Nicholson, it's like she just has this prettiness about her that reminds me of black women. It's like her eyes, like her face. And I'm like, yo, I've seen 100 black women that look like that and only one white girl that looks like that. And then Margot Robbie too. Same thing, just those four. So it's like I've only seen 4, attractive white women in mind. Oh, and Amy Jo Johnson, but she's a bit older now. But really only 4. And then a million white chicks. As I said, last on this topic, but it's like me, Lori Harvey trumps every single white woman that ever existed on this goddamn earth, ever. I don't give a damn if y'all don't agree. You said what, Drew?
What? Her?
Yes.
Her.
Yes. I will stand on that. You know why? Because she broke up with Dancing Ninjas the other day. So I will stand on that now. I'm back. I'm better than every single white woman that has ever walked this fucking earth. And I hope Lori hears this shit one day. That's a fact. I'm back.
Better than Michelle Pfeiffer in her prime. Oh.
Nah, let me talk.
I know Michelle Pfeiffer.
Wrap this shit up.
I don't know.
I know you know who that is. I don't know who the fuck that is. Who?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Get the fuck out of here. What? Nigga? Nah. First of all, Margot Robbie was way better than Michelle Pfeiffer.
And that Bruno Mars kid put her in his song,
Who?
Bruno Mars put her in his song. I don't listen to the music, but my son did. And I heard it's for that white gold, that Michelle Pfeiffer. And I heard that in there. I said, oh, you mentioned Michelle Pfeiffer, huh? Okay.
Yeah. To me, Cameron Diaz in The Mask looks better than her. Facts. If we want to talk about
Cameron Diaz is a good. Yeah, she was prime in her day in The Mask. I'm not gonna lie.
Technically, I heard isn't Cameron Diaz technically Latino?
Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, but she looked like a white girl. She literally looks like a white girl, but she looked better than her. Because to me, I consider Cameron Diaz to be white. I don't really look at her as a Latino woman like that. Because like I've seen her without makeup and she gives white girl. You know what I mean? Hermione.
I gotta say, man, my top. If I were to pick somebody famous right now that's currently out there that you guys might know, I would say Bryce Dallas Howard.
Who?
Bryce? Look her up, Bryce.
Oh yeah,
Bryce?
she's good looking.
Dallas Howard.
This is wildin'. Y'all niggas. Y'all crazy. Nah, what the? Nah, man.
Bryce Dallas
Spider-Man 3
Howard,
with
man.
Toby.
She was in Jurassic Park, bro. Nah, man. I'm good on that.
Bryce Dallas Howard, man. She was the
So
original
you
Gwen.
mean to
She
tell
was
me?
the original Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3.
All right, so you mean to tell me that you would pick Bryce Dallas Howard over Margot Robbie, Wolf of Wall Street, Margot Robbie?
No.
I don't know, man. That was kind of tough because I do like redheads a lot. So
Me personally, nah. I mean, again,
I'm not picking her over Margot.
You know, again, like
that's a tough one, man. Because they're both pretty prime, man. So I don't know.
Nah, I'm
Bryce Dallas Howard, man, is pretty prime, man, and so is Margaret Robbie, man. She's pretty prime, man.
Yeah, I will say, if this picture is accurate, because it says Paris Fashion Week and it was Emma Watson over there, like I said, she looked cute. Like I don't give a fuck what Dr. Umar Johnson says. I would date her. Like I would love to take her out to eat. I would love to just sit and talk to her and see, you know, where her mind is at and all that shit, because she has that Sky Nicholson cuteness. If you Google her right now, Sky Nicholson, and then put that in your mind with Emma Watson, you see like the types of white chicks that I would look at and be like, okay, yeah, she's kind of cute. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I would kind of do my thing. Google her right now, Drew, if you just so you can see what I'm talking about.
All right, let me see what we got here.
Sky SKYENICOLSON.
Okay, Sky Nicholson.
Watson, she's cute. Like you know what I'm saying?
Okay, she's cool.
Yeah, but the thing is, see, but Emma Watson, she wouldn't date a black guy though. That's the thing. I don't know.
Oh no, she's not.
Yeah, she wouldn't do that. So that shit ain't happening. That shit ain't happening.
What's wrong with Bryce Dallas Howard?
No, hold on, let me look. Oh, okay. Hold on. I was about to look up Sky Nicholson. So you made me goddamn backspace and shit before I wrap this up. She's just not it, bro. Like she's not it. Like it's just the red lipstick is just throwing me off, man. Like it's like nah, I don't see it, man. Like she doesn't fall. Like she remind me of Julia Roberts. Like she looked like Roberts. She does.
No.
Pictures that I'm looking at, bro. She remind me of Julia Roberts for real. And like I've seen worse, but again, like those four, I've seen a lot better. I've seen way like, bro. Amy Jo Johnson clears her whole entire. Amy Jo Johnson in her youth clears this whole woman's life. Amy Jo Johnson in her youth was fucking sexy for a white girl. Clears.
No, she's cute, and Twee was cute too.
I'm not really into Asians, so she wasn't ugly, but just if she threw it at me, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. R.I.P. But I'm no. But Bryce Dallas, nah, she wouldn't look good on my arm. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you see me walk down the street with a white girl, she has to fit my aesthetic. She has to like a nigga gotta look at me and be like, okay, I see why he's with her, right? And if you look at Sky, it's like, okay, like. I would rock with that if she were to fuck with black guys. And again, y'all know white women are not always open to black men like that. So it's like she has to, I don't know. And this is what I'm saying. I know I don't really appeal to white women like that. So to me, it's probably not gonna happen. That's why I said, like, when I appeal to black women appeal to me. So this is why that happens. I've never met a white girl that I appeal to and she appeals to me at the same time. Because the white girls that appeal to me, one, there's only 4 of them out of 4 billion people on this earth, and they're out of reach. And then even if they were within reach, I don't appeal to them because they don't date black men like that. Because who is Emma Watson dating right now? Freaking a white guy.
She's dating anybody.
But let's say if you look at all her last boyfriends, she dated white guys.
Yeah.
And yes, Jules is probably the only one that probably, you know, would date a black man. You know what I'm saying? Because she's more of black culture than white culture. So she's the only one. And in Sky, again, like, I don't know, like, probably not. And she's from the UK. She's not even from America. So, nah, I'm good. But anyway, so I want to say I appreciate you guys for coming back, you know, on the quick take. I think that this was a great discussion. I think we got somewhere, even though all 3 of us don't necessarily see eye to eye 100%. Like, I know Percy's probably in more so agreement with me than you, Drew. But either way, again, it's good to have a healthy disagreement. It's good to disagree as long as it's healthy and it's respectful. So on that note, I want to say thank you guys.
And I just hope people learn from this conversation and they can continue this dialogue, whether it's on your YouTube channel or amongst themselves. But conversation like this needs to be had.
Last words. All right. Bryce Dallas Howard's awesome. But Carrie Fisher is the ultimate because she's Princess Leia.
Okay. Before no. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Please try to always still like.
He said, "What are your thoughts?"
And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.